Beginning 10 years prior, a boy tries to hand off some sweets to Sir Ram, only to be carried away. In the present, the rebels have stolen a container of a mutagenic virus from Wundagore. The thief is one Git Hoskins, whom you'll recognise as the mummy man accompanying Karen and Bromley when they helped Spidey escape in episode 2, as well as the boy Ram kidnapped. Meanwhile, Mr. Munoz is getting tired of the action shots of Spider-Man and wants some photos he can use for gossip pieces. Peter spots Git outside fighting machine men and joins the battle. Unfortunately, he's hampered by, I'm sure people were waiting for this one, his web shooters being empty. Git's bandage powers work just as well to scramble their circuits at least. The Knights arrive as Git escapes to the sewers. Ram tells Spidey he's not their target right now, explaining the virus Git's holding is not just contagious but also airborne if broken free. Before they go their separate ways, Spidey places a tracer on their riders. Naoko's dealing with a phone call from her husband, who's displaying jealousy at Peter's presence. Speaking of which, he arrives as an injured John stumbles into the clinic. Helping him to a bed, he then hides away to refill on webbing, and also because he doesn't want John to suspect the truth about him. Could always just say to counter the Earth version, or just use the excuse he did when he took the Solaris too, but anyway. Meeting with the rebels, Spidey learns the container's fitted with a bomb on a 2-hour trigger. Everyone heads to the Knights' location as Spidey suggests they team up. Suffice to say, neither side is enthused. Spidey tries to disarm both sides, appealing to Ram's scientific nature as he's the only one capable of disarming the bomb, and the rebels as they'd know where Git was supposed to rendezvous. Arriving at the rendezvous point, Vermin picks up Git's scent, but he's long gone. Tensions are still high, but Karen tells everyone of a secondary meeting point. Git's waiting there, considering just smashing the container outright, as he continues to flash back to his childhood and Ram's experiments turning him into what we see of him now. He spots his pursuers and gets the wrong idea. Spidey attempts to get the container as Ursula holds him, but he doesn't hold it for long. Git blows up a power grid, and Spidey's told to pursue him alone for now. Spidey catches up to Git and takes the container back. Unfortunately, there's less than a minute left on the bomb, which Ram reveals as the final failsafe preventing him from disarming it. Thinking back to how he disarmed the machine men, Spidey appeals to Git to get him to take care of it, which thankfully is successful. Seeing the man who turned him into a monster, Git attacks Ram as he tries to give the standard "this changes nothing between us" speech. Spidey pulls him away, but tensions rise again. An argument begins over who should get the container, as no one trusts Ram to dispose of it despite him being the only one who can. Git decides to hand it to him regardless of his own feelings, having used the sweets on both sides as a cooldown factor earlier. Peter sells some gossip photos to Mr. Munoz showing Spider-Man and Lady Vermin having a tryst. I'm sure he was thrilled to have to sage that one. Carnage, meanwhile, breaks into Ram's lab, grabbing the container for himself. Peter celebrates another successful photo job with Naoko and Shane, unaware that her husband is watching from the shadows. Given he appeared effectively as a background character in the intro episodes, giving Git the spotlight as a Wundagore vs Rebel story has merit to it at least. Certainly sets up that Ram's easily the most zealous of the Knights of Wundagore too. Certainly had the beatdown coming at any rate. Rather noticeable that Tiger disappears after the intro, as he'd have been able to serve as an additional voice of reason based on how he was portrayed in his earlier appearance. Maybe they just didn't want to have Spidey share the spotlight as mediator or something. Still, a nice bit of characterisation on Spidey's part, reminding the audience he's good with words as well as appealing to Ram as a fellow scientist. Feels like the Yamada Jones family stuff is a bit inconsistent so far. The previous episode had Green Goblin seem like he couldn't leave his current life to return to Naoko and regretted that fact, while his shadowy self here comes off as an overly jealous stalker getting the wrong idea about Peter. Maybe as episodes go on it'll come together a bit more naturally, but so far it's a bit questionable what they're going for. Bromley's tag scrambler fails, attracting machine men. Meanwhile, Peter and Shane watch as the area they encountered the symbiotes is undergoing reconstruction. Granted press access, they watch as one of the workers finds a decades-old machine man known as X-51. Despite thinking it destroyed, it reactivates, feeling it still has value in a display of sentience. The worker disagrees, planning to dismantle it. X-51 knocks the worker's tool away, but ends up agitating the local pack mules as a result. Worse still, Shane's placed in danger. Thankfully, with some help from Spidey, X-51 gets him safe. Machine men make an attack, but Ursula arrives and calls them off. She's there to bring X-51 in for analysis, which he decides to go along with to not place anyone else in danger. Thanks to a spider tracer, Spider-Man tracks them down to a skyscraper, but it's protected by a force field. Doubling back, he enlists the help of the rebels, though John admits they're only hoping to use X-51 as a bargaining chip to rescue Bromley. He also has a brief flashback to his time as High Evolutionary's captive when he first landed. So Ram is running tests on X-51 as Spidey's team intrudes. He tells Spidey that even if X-51's destroyed, his sentience is certainly a curiosity. Ram overpowers Spidey as John and Karen fight off his assistance. It doesn't last as he pushes away Ram's saw and knocks him back. He then contains his foes thanks to some webbing. Rescuing X-51, he repays the favour by disabling the building's security. John still wants him as a bargaining chip, but Spidey refuses, knowing John wouldn't pull the trigger. Spidey brings X-51 to Naoko's home, where Shane reveals his father was something of a scientist himself, and had an old cache of machine parts that could help fix him up. John and Karen discuss Bromley, though the latter suspects the upcoming hostage exchange is a trap. X-51 discusses his growing humanity with Spidey, but something triggers within him. He attacks and leaves, getting intercepted by John. Meeting at Grand Central Station for the exchange, it's revealed Ram placed an override chip in X-51. Spidey moves in as a fight breaks out, allowing Bromley to get free briefly. As the fight continues, the still intact Solaris 1 is revealed. Ursula gets hold of John and Bromley in the confusion, so Spidey tries to break through to X-51's humanity. It works, and he's able to destroy Ram's remote. Now free, John demands they escape before more machine men are called in, and there's no time to plant a tracer on the ship. With things calmed down, John apologises to X-51 and offers him a place with the rebels, which he accepts. First episode not to feature the symbiotes in any capacity beyond a brief mention. Some good characterisation between Spidey and John at least, and a building mystery of what John actually went through when he first landed on Counter-Earth. Also good to get confirmation the Solaris 1's still intact, even if it does raise the question why it's being stored at Grand Central. As far as X-51 goes, not exactly lighting anything on fire in terms of plot. Hardly the first story of a killer robot drone gaining sentience and a conscience after all. Still, mostly inoffensive in its delivery, and it's not like X-51 is a one-off as he plays a role in future episodes. Plus, Ram sneaking in a remote failsafe before the rescue does help keep up the tension in the episode somewhat. Spider-Man's been gaining popularity among the public, so Ram proposes they take him down before he becomes too influential and potentially a unifying force. To this end, he meets with a man known as the Hunter. Basically Craven in all but name, and probably not named due to the mandates, but I'll just say Craven for convenience's sake. One of the privileged few humans allowed to live in the upper city and actually managing to intimidate Ram, he takes the job for the challenge alone. Releasing a pheromone that induces aggression in a bestial lonely park, Craven causes some rising hostility among the locals. Peter and Naoko are enjoying a meal nearby. Naoko tells Peter more about Hector, her missing husband, who was a science whiz that fell on hard times when his company folded. Spending a lot of time working on a secret project, he soon joined the rebels, but disappeared not long after. While she's worried at how jealous he sounded in their phone calls, she assures Peter he'd never harm her or Shane. Spotting the building tension, Naoko plans to give aid to any injured, while Peter suits up to try and defuse things. Kraven agitates both sides, but Karen comes in to help as she was in the area testing an upgraded tag jammer. With the chemical's effect only being short-term, things quiet back down as Kraven watches, noting Spidey's friendship with Karen and Naoko as a potential weakness he can exploit. Heading to the rebel base, Karen tells Spidey Kraven's targeting him. He soon encounters the hunter on a rooftop and finds him an even match. Spidey's caught in a web trap, but breaks free thanks to the supports being weak. Kraven's also prepared a counter-chemical that dissolves Spidey's webbing quicker than normal, so Spidey runs for the moment. Spidey's cloaking proves useless thanks to Kraven having an infrared detector, so he slips back into the streets as Peter. Kraven may not know his name, but he isn't fooled, and worse still, now has a face to follow. Changing tactics, Kraven makes a move on Karen, as Spidey learns from John. Heading to Kraven's lair, Spidey's met with all manner of traps along with Kraven's taunts. Heading into a vent, he soon finds and frees Karen. Searching the lair, they find a chemical lab and Spidey learns Kraven's strength comes from a chemical that grants power at the cost of half one's life. Kraven appears, not caring about that kind of consequence, and the fight moves into a garden. Spidey taunts Kraven from the shadows, while Peter falls out a tree, claiming he's just there for photos. Thanks to his suit being nanotech, it can operate upright independently. Slipping back into the suit, Spidey manages to overpower Kraven. Trapping him with his own laser system, he warns the hunter not to come after him or his friends again now that he knows who he is. Granted, it's largely tough talk as he admits to Karen. Probably the most fillerish episode so far, but not without its contribution to the overarching plot. Ram noting that Spider-Man's popularity is growing is an interesting take, probably helped by the Daily Bite not running the standard threat or menace narrative. Also nice to get some more concrete info on Hector Jones, and that perhaps he's not quite as threatening as he appeared earlier with the jealous phone calls. Despite not actually using the name Kraven, likely due to the mandates given to the writing staff, he does come off a bit more in line with what was seen in the comics. Not that I really minded the portrayal in the previous series, barring maybe the season 4 episode, but it's cool to see a version that's in it for the thrill of the hunt and proving who's superior among the two of them. Also, using the ever-zealous and arrogant Ram to introduce him shows a bit of hidden depth and possible hypocrisy on the part of Wundagore. Ending felt a bit of an anticlimax, but the point was at least made that Spider-Man is able to use his mind to prove himself the better fighter. Next time, a flying foe, John's dark secrets, and a reject-filled bestial commune bring us to episode 9. Until then.